What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of God is Laughing at Us, the podcast. And this is kind of unusual for me because I am legitimately pressing the record button with no real idea of what I'm about to say or where this is about to go. So bear with me. I guess I'll start by saying, not really explaining where I've been in the last couple weeks, but as you all know, recently, well, as I've shared with you all, I've recently started a new job. So even though my schedule is much better than the old spot, I have been a little bit challenged with the adjustment to this new schedule. So, my body getting adjusted to new things. Sometimes even like socializing and things of that nature has been a little bit of an adjustment for me as well. So just all of these different things that I'm having to now account for just in terms of like interpersonal relationships, work responsibilities, not to mention getting back in the swing of things that now that I have time back, just being able to show up and actually meaningfully serve at church and everything. So now that all of these things are happening for me again, it's just admittedly, I'll be real, just been a little bit of a challenge for me to just kind of figure out things because, new schedule. And I got so used to the old dysfunctional situation that I am adjusting to being in a functional space. So I'm not making any excuses. Obviously, we want to be consistent with these things. I guess I'll go ahead and say it now because it's like, so don't get mad at me when I say this, but I will be taking it light in July. So this episode will hopefully be up last day of June or so. And then from there, you know, July, y'all probably catch me towards the end of the month, maybe, or y'all catch me in August. But with that out of the way, so what's good? What I'm really feeling, there was a whole thing that I had in my head that I would have recorded last week, and of course, it was one of those things that by the time I got around to it, there was again, like I said, there was a lot going on, a lot that I'm still adjusting to. But then there was also, to be real with you, there was just this part of me that is like, I had to feel the way I felt about it in the moment. That I needed to hop on and I needed to immediately press that record button. Cause if I didn't record it when I felt it, then it wasn't going to have the same energy behind it. So, I'm not trying to be led by my feelings or anything like that. However, for me, I'm just gonna take my time and wait until, I am in that space again. So it's authentic and it's real and it's not just like me trying to conjure up the thing that was inside of me when I thought of the topic. But moving along, what I am feeling though is that couple months ago, I did an episode about the importance of sharing our testimonies so our stories aren't watered down by other people. If y'all don't remember, I did my whole spiel about hip hop keto. So if you don't know what that is, go find a 1993 episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and get educated, or don't, whatever floats your boat. But in that, I'm telling y'all the importance of sharing your testimony. I'm over here singing all the things the Lord has done for you, and you had nothing to say, you can't tell it, so let me tell it. But I didn't really tell anything. And I've been kinda sitting on this for a minute because honestly, after I had a conversation with my wife pertaining to that specific episode, she pointed out that it's like, it's cool that you're talking about, like, the fundamentals of a testimony, but you didn't share anything about yourself. And honestly, in that moment, I didn't feel like that was really the place for it, because I was trying to get a joke off with some substance, if I'm being completely honest. So, but after having a conversation with Jessica and really just thinking about that, I'm like, yeah, that's something that I will come to. And considering that, like I said, I pressed record, I didn't really have any clear thought process or any clear idea of where I wanted to go with this. Figure now is as good a time as any. So when I was teaching a discipleship class at my church last year, one of the things that we discussed was kind of having like the elevator pitch version of your testimony. So just something that, that it's like minute or two, something engaging, something that strikes up conversation. Cause ultimately I think that one of the important things is that, and something that I learned through that is that when you have a story, when you have something, and especially when you're trying to get to know someone and you're trying to bring someone into Christ, it's like you want to be transparent and vulnerable, but you also want to give space and leave room for them to share something. So you don't want to monopolize the story or monopolize the conversation unless, of course, they're asking follow-up questions and things like that, but you want to make it something that they can grab a hold to and connect to. So, I say all that to say that this is my podcast, so y'all not getting the elevator pitch today. Y'all are I'm just trying to figure out where exactly I wanna start with this. So I guess I'll just start with what I remember. So one of the things that I shared, on that particular episode is that I don't have one of those whimsical, fantastical, "I started from the bottom, now I'm here" type of testimonies. Like, there's very few situations that, at least from my point of view, and not that I'm comparing myself to anybody else or my story to anyone else's story, but there's just not very many things in my life that I feel like was just like just so absurdly crazy or that it was just like so off the beaten path and unusual. It's like I've been divorced and the divorce rate is roughly 50%. So I'm not unique in that regard. Like, I grew up in the hood. Like, there's a lot of us or a lot of people that didn't grow up in the best neighborhood. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of suburban folk, and then there's people that grew up like me on the south side of Chicago. And even when I moved to the suburbs around middle school or so, I was still essentially on the south side of Chicago. I probably spent as much time on the south side of Chicago living in the quasi suburbs of Chicago than any place else because I was a mile away or give or take. That I just don't feel like personally it's super like exciting. It's not like one of those like super interesting things. Now, of course, it's probably because it's my story, I've lived it, and it's not something I really think a whole lot about. But that said, I'm not gonna, you know, take you back to 1986 when I was born or anything like that, and yeah, I was born in 1986. Yeah, but I'm not going all the way back, but what I will say is that my childhood was a very I mean, for me, very normal childhood. I mean, there's a lot of things that I was a part of, and there's a lot of things that I avoided because I just looked around and I realized that a lot of this stuff wasn't for me. So I've shared that part with the pod before, but it's just like been a lot of things in my life growing up, a lot of the environments and things of that nature that I'm like, it either isn't presently not for me or this isn't going to be for me going forward. And it's not because I ever felt like I was better than anybody. It's not because I ever felt like I was necessarily different from anybody. 145th and Union, that wasn't gonna be it. Like wherever I was growing up, it is like I just felt completely out of place. Like, I didn't necessarily even have the language to fully articulate it. I just had this feeling that I'm like, "I don't belong here." And so it wasn't one of those things where I'm like Joseph and I'm lording over my family and my brothers, like I'm the big fish in the small pond. So one day y'all gonna bow to me while I'm over here in my multicolored Gucci jacket. Or so, but it's like just like it was just the way that I perceive things. And honestly, I didn't realize growing up that what was really happening is that me not having that sense of comfort where I was, like me not feeling like I entirely belonged where I was, it allowed me to want something better. It allowed me to get to a place where I was seeking something deeper and bigger. It put me in a place where I ended up leaving and going to school in a different city. So I went to college in New Orleans, but then even then, it's like it led me to Phoenix. It led me to all these different things that is not to say that I could not have found them where I came from, but I wasn't meant to find where I came from. That, like much like Abraham was told to leave that place. Like he was told to leave Tehran and he was to go to a place to which he'll be sent. Like go to the place that I'll tell you, but he had to leave the initial place. So that was one of the things that was deeply embedded in my experience. That as much as I love Chicago, I could never fully get comfortable there. That even after experiencing Hurricane Katrina and going back to Chicago for a semester, it's like the school wasn't it. I couldn't focus. I just felt so distracted, and it just felt like there were so many things going on that were not in alignment with what I was honestly desiring to pursue, what I was honestly desiring to get out of my life. Growing up on the south side of Chicago, the very first place that I did feel like I belonged is the church that I walked into as a 14, almost 15-year-old. A church that, if I'm being honest, that I only went to because my mom and her coworker were playing matchmaker with my brother and his, and her sister, the coworker's sister. Let me clarify. So if not for that, I would not have found that place of belonging. I would not have found that place where I started to, like begin to get to know me, that I began to experience a piece that I had not yet experienced, that I just felt home. Like it was the first time I felt at home. And that I'm not saying that I didn't feel at home at my mom's house, but it was different. And I think that y'all understand what I'm saying here. So throughout high school, I had that thing that continued to keep me going, to continue to keep me present, to continue to keep me through, that I was able to get good word instilled in me. I was able to come to a level of understanding about some real things that, again, that I just wasn't experiencing elsewhere, that I just wasn't feeling fulfilled elsewhere, that even me who eventually graduated as valedictorian in high school, like I felt out of place there. And so it's like there was no place but this but spending time with my mom, and then but really at church, that I really felt like I was in my element. So the more that I got to know about God, the more that I got to experience, the more time I spent, the more, I was able to learn and take in and everything like that. It just really brought me to a place where I was just like, I don't wanna lose this." But then, like I told you, I went to school in New Orleans. I found out some things, like, just, I've had my dad Anthony Senior on the pod previously, and we've talked about some things, but there were some things that just kind of happened between him and I, with him being minister, pastor, apostle, all of those things that just kind of like made me have to felt like I needed to take a back seat. That 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 God, I'm not giving up on you, but I'm giving up on this institution. That I don't want to have anything to do with any of this. That I don't want to be bothered with any of this. That I mean, then add on that there's people in the church space that's telling me that I should do this and I should be this, that there's this call on my life to do this, that you're so anointed for this and that. I'm like, I don't want any of that. So I made my dad a convenient excuse for me to duck all of the things that people were telling me. And then I just leaned even more into my schoolwork, into, pursuing a career that, like I figured, like, let me go get this doctorate degree. Let me be in a field where I'm, like respected, where I'm making an impact on people, where I'm just able to do all of these different things that, and hopefully y'all leave me alone about like serving God. I'm like, cause I'm like, I'm serving his people and, and I'm doing so in a fairly lucrative field. Like, that I'll forever be comfortable, that I'll never have to ask for anything or rely on anyone for anything extra. And then I got really comfortable in a life I didn't enjoy. So that just became its own little thing that now obviously I'm not giving y'all like the full blow by blow details here, but I hope that y'all are picking up something as I share this with you. But just the different things that happened once I graduated pharmacy school, things that happened in relationships, things that happened professionally, just all these different things I had to consider, all of these things I had to walk through that it's like I never felt an environment I never felt like I was in an environment where I could be fully me. That, that I had to dim my light a lot. Like, I did a lot of dimming of my light through college to, to kinda to fit in, to not come across as a certain type of person, not s come across as intelligent, to not come across as intelligent I as I am, and I'm not saying, and I mean that humbly as possible. But, it's like like things have always come naturally to me, but I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to, like look like and sound like everybody else for a time in my life. And then it's like I entered into relationships for, like romantic relationships. And but it's like even in those things, even in those relationships, I kept like breaking off pieces of myself so I could try to acquiesce and become what I was hoping those relationships needed. But I wasn't being me. I wasn't leaning onto God for any of that. Like I had seriously gotten into this place, like because I didn't want to do the things that I realized would have required me to lean on God a whole lot more than I had to for years. Like I built something with my own hands, with me as the foundation. And when you build something is that has you as the foundation, then you're required to keep that. Like Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the rock that when you build a house that the rain can come, the winds can blow, and nothing take it out. But a house built on me, separate from Jesus, is a whole other another ball game. It's like, for one, I can't swim, so if it's too much water, we gonna have an issue. And even though I'm a little bit sturdier than I was 10 years ago, the wind could have took like the wind would have took me out and the water didn't. So just recognizing all of that, just considering all of these things, just putting all of this in mind, it's like I'm building something on myself that I'm in this mindset, like, I got the degree. I took the test. I go to work every day. Like, I'm in this relationship. I'm in this. It was just like, I, I, but it was never, I am that I am. It was just I. It was never greater is he who is within me than he is who is in the world. It was just big I. And Lord, I'll talk to you when I need you. I'll talk to you if I decide I need you at that. So fast forward, me doing my own thing, me not making major decisions without like leaning on God for it, me choosing a whole career where I didn't lean on God for that. Like when I decided that I wasn't going to med school, or I really got into this place of like, like I considered one thing, somebody told me that was stupid. So I suggested another thing that like, well, at least you make money doing that. And I'm like, cool. It's like I didn't pray about it. I didn't, think to go to God about it. I didn't think about any of those things. And then it landed me in a career that for a very long time that I've either just found myself a little bit more irritable than I needed to be, just challenged in areas that I couldn't understand, and it's like, and it was just one of those things that it took me years to realize, but it's like sometimes it's like just because you're good at something, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're graced for it. That obvious God's grace will be with you, that God will grace you for the day, but at the same time, you can be highly skilled at something and that not be the thing that God wants you to focus on, that God is calling you to, that God wants you to create your niche in. Because look, Jesus, I'm sure, was building the best furniture known to man, as a carpenter and whatnot. As a woodworker, Jesus was probably like had the most blessed pieces of furniture or whatever he was building available. But guess what? That wasn't what Jesus was put here to do. Like Jesus was able to feed many without a whole lot. So he could have look like fish fries by Jesus could have went up, but that wasn't what he was here for. There's so many things that sometimes that we look at our capability, we get stuck on our capability and just think that, oh, I'm good at this, so that's all there is to it. But we overlook the fact that it's like, if I'm convinced that I can do this on my own, that I could do this under my own ability, under my own capability, under my own capacity, that if I'm convinced that I can do this with or without God, then God's grace probably isn't moving in that. And then, of course, there's also those things that we're just flat out terrible at, and I'm not gonna even go down that road too deeply, but just know, obviously, if you flat out terrible at it and you tried to get good at it, and you just and you want so badly to be good at it, but God has never said a single word about it, and you just keep falling flat on your face, that's obviously not where his grace lies either. But when life began to happen, when things started to change, when I started to crack under the weight of trying to hold up my own life, things just started to fail. Things started to falter. Like I said, I was married before and that didn't work out. And a lot of it a lot of it was me, like there, like me losing myself, me not recognizing who I needed to be or who I should have been, me not being in a place of surrender, like me choosing a wife without being surrendered and seeing God as my spouse, not learning that label, like, like not walking in that type of faithfulness. Because if we're being real, it's like I had to learn that if I can't be faithful to God, that if I'm not truly faithful to God, that I'm going to struggle with people and understand that it's like being unfaithful doesn't mean that I went and did something sexual with somebody or anything along those lines, or being unfaithful isn't just purely sexual, but it's like being unfaithful is just like, what are you prioritizing above this? Like, what are you prioritizing, or what are you putting in this place that it doesn't belong? And honestly, like I put the things in life, like I put my first marriage in the place of God, but I also put work in the place of that marriage. So it's like there was a whole lot of dysfunction going on in my life at that time. There was a whole lot of things that were out of order, and none of the things that the order was so messed up that I couldn't find peace, that I couldn't find rest, I couldn't find enjoyment. That I believe is Pastor Manny Arango, like he wrote a book about this. But one just the idea that it's like if you're looking for peace, then you have to find order and you have to find God's order. That you can't be in disorder, you can't be in disarray if you're hoping for God's peace. So so you can't be idolizing something or building an idol of something and want God to bless your commitment to the thing that you made an idol of. And this is just something that I had to learn. This is something that I had to, like, really come to terms with and come to grips with. This is something that it was just like because that thing had occupied so much of the space that God was supposed to occupy in my life for, I would say, a solid month, maybe a little bit less than that, but for a couple weeks for sure, I was just kinda like, "Well, what do we do?" And then one day, I remember, like, I spent the night in a hotel. I hadn't yet figured out what my next step was, but I'm like, I was in a hotel one night, and I just remember that I was like, "Well, I'm about to this and that, I'm about to that and this," and then God just started talking to me, and as tempted as I was to be like, "Where have you been? Where were you when? Now you wanna talk to me?" He shushed me and reminded me that he hasn't moved, that he's always been there. It's just that I had too much noise, that I had too much disarray and disorder, that I hadn't been seeking his order. So, of course, everything felt dysfunctional. And of course, I didn't hear his voice because I had the volume up on a whole lot of other things. So, needless to say, he got my attention. And obviously, it was a process. I mean, we all remain works in progress. So, it was a process to me just, like, learning surrender, me learning just these different things, me dissociating from a lot of the labels that I have put on myself, me learning to be the same person in every room that I walk into, me having the confidence in who I am, not because of my name, not because of my presence, but because of God's presence that goes before me, that I know that God went before me before I walked in any place so I can walk with my head held high, not because I'm better than anybody, but because I know that I am partnering with the presence of God in every room I walk into. So there's just things that I was able to pick up on. There was things that I was able to just find a level of confidence in. There's things that to this day that God continues to teach me, whether it's through my marriage, whether it's through my parenting, whether it's through my work, whether it's through like small groups and or volunteering, whatever it is, there's things that I'm being taught. There's things that I'm picking up on. There's things that I'm just really beginning to understand that I discovered a little bit as a teenager that I fell away from in my early adulthood, but that I've been able to steadily rediscover, that I've been able to steadily get back into, that I've been able to steadily just completely lean into it to find that measure and that level of peace concerning that thing. So as I've gotten back and as I've been able to discover that level of peace, that level of just goodness of God, then I can see all of these different things growing and cultivating in me, that I can understand how to approach things even when they're tense and uncomfortable. That there's just things that I'm not perfect at, but I know I'm better than I used to be at. So those are the things that God has just been working on me. And then every single day I wake up, I experience God's restorative power through my wife. Like the way she speaks to me, the way she doesn't just remind me of who I am because of what I told her, but she reminds me of who I am because of whose I am. So and not just being her husband, but being a child of God. So there's just things that I that are being killed. There's things that, that she encouraged me through that the things that I was challenged by and that I struggled with in, and again, this is honestly a very one-sided thing. Like, but things that I struggled with within my relationship with my dad, like it was her that encouraged me to just press in. And I I get to enjoy like, I get to enjoy, conversations with him. Like, like, we get to talk about things. We get to check in. I just get to, like and I don't have any burden. It's like I don't have any festering unforgiveness. I don't have any of these festering things. And it's like so many good things because it's like you really realize that he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. And so it's like there's some things that are so much more favorable. There is so much more goodness in my life, and it's because I see God work through her every single day. So that's not really the direction that I plan to close with, but that is where I am going to close this. So I appreciate y'all listening. I hope I was able to remain coherent in the absence of any prepared notes because, I rarely sit here and record without notes or anything like that. So, here we go. Here we are. But yeah, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Like I said, it's like whether or not I record in the next couple weeks, there will probably be nothing posted for, let's say, let's be safe and say August. But if y'all see something before then, that just means that there was something that was, like, in my bones. It was like fire shot up in my bones. I had to get it out. So, yeah. So, on that note, I appreciate y'all for listening. I appreciate y'all for, the feedback, for continuing to rock with me, to, just just make me feel like this is well, I mean, just continuing to remind me that this is something that God has really meant for me to do. that this is not just something that I'm doing because it feels good for me, that because it's fun, because it's like it's not always easy or it's not always enjoyable for me to just be this open about anything. And again, I know I gave y'all the Cliff Notes version. I know I didn't like go into the deepest of deep detail, but there will be a time for that, I'm sure. But on that note, this has been God is Laughing at Us, the podcast. I am Anthony Nathan Heath the second. Jesus is the brand. I don't know why I said that, but I did. All right. I love y'all. Peace.